to Purpose-Driven Progress. Today, we are talking all about building a system that will allow you to create a second brain. This is kind of the way I think about it when we are creating a system that will allow us to offload our task management so that we can actually focus on the things that we really want to get done. So let's get right into it. So I want to take you back in my life here to when I was in college. Now, this was during finals week. So as you can imagine, there were a lot of stressed out students just kind of buzzing around campus trying to get studying and everything else done. And most were running on caffeine and just sheer panic, right? And I walked into the library and we had this kind of really cheap cafe there at the time. So we had that really kind of just sharp burnt coffee smell. I mean, you know that smell, like smells so bad that you can almost taste it. I mean, it was that bad. We could hear what I kind of think of as like the clickety clacks, where people are like doing their essays or reviewing notes or whatever. So they're typing away on their keyboard. You just kind of hear that like that low clickety clack sound. And I could see as I walked in a group of students who must have been part of a study group. And as I walked by, I could hear that kind of low hum where they are like reciting things either lowly to themselves or to each other. And at the time I had 5 finals, I had 3 essays, and I had 2 group projects to get done. Now, if you're anything like me, I really thought that I had everything under control. So I found a table that I plopped down in, you know, those chairs that they kind of always have at every college campus. You look at them and you feel like they should be decently comfortable, but there's really no padding. And they're just super hard all the time. And they have like a little bit of back support, but not really. Like one of those kind of chairs, right? So I plopped down into it. And I remember sitting down at this table, starting to unpack my stuff. And gosh, I remember this really vividly, that I remember like putting my hand kind of underneath the table a little bit. And I felt that somebody had carved their name into it. John. All right. Now my mind was racing. So I had to finish this paper. I had to prep for my exam. So I got to eat at some point. And I also got to respond to my girlfriend's text that I haven't talked to all day. I was panicked. I had a lot going on. Now, I thought there's really no way that I'm going to be able to get through this. My palms were sweaty, my knees were weak, my arms were heavy. You get the idea. Now, really, I was just approaching a meltdown. So I know nobody listening to this has ever felt that way, like there's, too much on your plate and you're just going to drop something for sure, right? Now, like I said, nobody here listening has ever felt that way. Maybe you know some folks that have felt that way. Like I said, I was overwhelmed, getting ready to have my meltdown. So I did what I always do when I'm feeling overwhelmed. So I wrote everything down. I don't just mean that I wrote down everything, like I said, like my 5 exams, my 3 essays, and my 2 group projects, but I wrote down every single thing that I had to get done and every minute detail that I could think of. From like putting my essays together. I mean, I had to do like my first draft, had to do the research, had to get my outline put together, get my drafts done, do a review to make sure I wasn't saying something weird. I mean, I put everything down, including, 5, 10, 15-minute breaks, just to make sure that I wasn't totally burning myself out. Now, something pretty amazing happened after I did that. I felt so much lighter. My head stopped spinning, and it really became a roadmap for my whole finals week. And that's when I realized that I can't keep everything in my head, and that I really had to develop some sort of system to get everything out. Because, it was so bad a couple of points that week that I remember waking up in the middle of the night because I had forgotten something that I had to get done. Now, it wasn't necessarily something I had to get done right then and there when I woke up, but it was something that I had forgotten. I hadn't put it down. I hadn't got down on my list. Because really, like at one point when I was writing everything down, I was drowning in tasks and I felt super emotional, right? And the next I had an absolutely clear plan. And it really felt like, maybe you guys can relate to this, where it's like you're swimming underwater and you're holding your breath 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 and you break through the surface and you can take another breath, right? That's really what I felt. Now that system of just writing everything down, that's was kind of the start of what we're going to talk about today. And it's really kind of the foundation too, I would suppose, but it's become much more sophisticated. Like, so I'm really going to break everything down. Because the real key that I've learned here is that when you get things like that, like the small details and the tasks that you just kind of have to make sure you're managing, when you get that out of your head, it allows you to focus on what you need to get done and actually doing those things. So you're not just surviving the chaos, you're actually thriving in it. So again, if you want to start thriving in the chaos, stay tuned, or we're going to actually dive right into exactly what I do and how the system functions. So if you're ready, here we go. Enter Todoist. Now, I'm not affiliated with Todoist in any way. This is just the system and the app that I have used for, the better part of a decade now in different functions. Now, Todoist, like I said, is just a task management tool. Because it's not about the memory, it's about the mental clarity that we get when those tasks actually get done. Now, one thing I want to bear in mind here is that just because this system works really well for me does not mean that it'll work perfectly for you. Over the years, I've tried various methods and various ways of doing this. Especially I tried like Outlook and like Google Calendar, and like some of those things have some task management in them as well. And those just didn't work as well for me for some reason I'm going to hand out here for you guys. But what I want you guys to make sure you're asking yourself all the way through our chat today is, how can I make this better? So take what I'm using and figure out some way that you can make it better for you. So keep asking yourself all the way through this, okay? Now, the reason I like to do this so much is because it's pretty seamless between working on my laptop all the way to like if I'm just out and about doing stuff on my phone. Now, the key thing with the phone piece of this is I'm very much a front of mind guy. Meaning that, sure, I can get notifications and all that kind of good stuff for, hey, make sure you get this task done today. But what has really worked well for me over the years is making sure that when I open my phone, which I tend to be on a little bit too much sometimes, but I have the widget for Todoist right there when I first open it. So right away, I know exactly, hey, I have to do this, and this today, or tomorrow, or the next day, I have to do X, Y, and Z. So I know exactly where I'm at in all the tasks that I have to get done. And like I said, it's also super seamless when I'm on my laptop, so that when I'm, working with coaching clients, or I just think of, oh man, gosh, I have to make sure that I, send off that email, or I have to make sure I, get Harley scheduled for, this vet appointment, I can actually get that done right then and there, and it's seamless between the two. The other reason I super love it is that I can make recurring tasks super easily. So for example, one of the early ones that I adopted, personal finance, financial literacy is super important to me. So every month, on the first of the month, depending on, usually I try to do on the weekends, so I shift things around a little bit. But early in the month, every month, I will review my finances just to make sure that my automations and everything are kind of flowing the way that they should be. So what I put in there is I put in review personal finances every first of the month. That's literally word for word what I put in there. And Todoist is nice because it'll take that and say, oh, first of the month, every month, and it'll make that recurring task for you. And you can do it. You can do it daily. You can do it weekly. You can do it every quarter, every 2, 3, 5 months, whatever kind of task makes sense for you. The other thing that I love is that you can do subtasks. So, for example, I'm not gonna lie to you guys and say that I'm an absolute clean freak and everything's in its proper place. If you're walking my apartment right now, you might be like, what kind of bomb went off in here? But I do try my best to clean every Saturday morning for the most part. And the way I do that in Todoist is I put cleaning as my task that comes every Saturday morning. And then you can put in subtasks in there, for example, like dusting, wiping down the surfaces, cleaning the bathroom mirror, like some of those kind of things in there. And then it'll come through every single day. You can just, again, check them off as you're going. Kind of a quick side note on that. For some of you folks listening, you might be like, well, so I love to-do lists, but I'm very much a physical to-do list person. And honestly, I'm right there with you. So I love having that super satisfying feeling where you cross something off, like, I got that done. And I get through the end of my day and I've got, 15 or 20 or whatever of those kind of just crossed off tasks. I do both, is the truth. Because I think there's a lot to be said for both ways, because the Todoist is kind of my 10,000 foot view, meaning that for like things that are recurring, it allows me to keep all of that straight. And then when it comes to like cleaning or some of those tasks or my daily to-do list, then I'll actually write all that stuff down and cross things off as I'm going, but it allows me to manage things on a higher level, and then I'll write them down into the nitty-gritty detail and day-to-day work. Now, for the professional folks out there, the reason I've loved it is that it's really grown with me as my business has grown. And one of the ways that it's done that is through Excel spreadsheets. Now, there is a way, and you can find the prompts on Todoist website, that you can build an Excel spreadsheet that will, for example, remind you to email a new prospect if you're in sales, folks. So the way I do that is, let's say you're doing like a 10 by 10, where you meet a new prospect at a networking event, and you want to make sure that you are reaching out to them 10 times over the next 10 weeks, just to make sure you're staying in front of mind. Now, you want to be doing that in a very personalized way, and not just like, hey, potential prospect, thank you so much for engaging with me at this networking event. I have these things to sell to you. Obviously, we're not trying to do that, right? But we're not to the point where we can just put them on like our weekly or monthly, kind of newsletter. But we want to make sure we're getting things personalized and calling them regularly, right? So the way you can do that is you can build out kind of the way I was saying before. So, call prospect, you can insert their name if you want to, tomorrow. And then you can do another task right below that in another line and say, email prospect 1 week from whatever date. And then the nice thing is that you just go in, you change whatever the prospect's names happen to be. You plug that whole spreadsheet into Todoist, and it will organize it for you so that you know that you're actually, hey, tomorrow I need to make sure I'm, calling John Smith back again. The other thing that I love is that you can, again, organize it in such a way that, like, I've got some different cleaning tasks that I don't do super regularly. Like, for example, usually every 2 or 3 months, I will properly clean my vacuum, like take everything apart and clean everything. And I have that in a label called cleaning and hygiene. I also have some stuff for my finances. And then I have something for following up with potential prospects or potential coaching clients, like I was just talking about. This is also really nice if you are hiring folks, where you have like very similar tasks, but you're not necessarily doing them all the time. So like, let's say you're bringing somebody on and you need to make sure that they're getting, X, Y, and Z paperwork done. You need to make sure that they are getting into, whatever systems you might have. And you have kind of a typical cadence as you bring somebody through orientation and training to get them up and running. So you can build a spreadsheet for that to get everything plugged in exactly the way you want it. Now, I have not personally used this next feature, but it is available if you have a larger team or just a team at all. It's like I'm an army of one right now. But if you have like 2, 3, 5, whatever folks underneath you that you're all kind of working together on one project, or you have certain tasks you want somebody to get done, then you can label those and send that in their Todoist. Say, hey, hey, Stacy, I need you to get this task done for me. So it's really nice to manage a team as well. Now, the next way is this is a little more of a personal story. I had the system all set up, and the thing is, like, a few years ago, I was in a job that, well, frankly, wasn't a great fit. And I had like the system of, getting, my tasks managed, similar to what we were just talking about. I had it all set up and it was been going great for me. And I was in this bad fit job. Things just weren't working out. I mean, it's always kind of funny how a job that you're really excited about can look really, really great on paper, but until you actually get into the work, you never really know what's going on, right? Now, at the time, I was still, working full time in sales, and just humbly, I mean, these are a little higher level sales jobs, where instead of, you have like 1 or 2 interviews, we're talking like 3, 5, 7 various interviews. So it was a lot to get through. Usually it would take a couple of months, kind of depending on how quickly they needed to get somebody hired. But this job, I mean, it really checked all the boxes for me. It had great pay, had the fancy title, and it really seemed like a company that I could grow with. And I was really excited for the first week, because the first week in a sales role, if you're not familiar, it's really kind of like drinking through a fire hose. But for those of us that have done it a couple of times, I mean, it's exciting because you get to learn all about a new product. You're learning about the systems and how they really kind of function and how they work together. Usually a CRM, client resource manager, is in there someplace. And then you're also learning about, some of your biggest clients, your biggest potential prospects. And the thing for me is that I felt like I finally had a role that would allow me to do something meaningful, to actually help people, to be a true, consult to them, to help them manage their business and figure out ways that we might have to work together. And I'm kind of a dork. So whenever I get really excited or pumped up about something, I will get up out of my seat and walk around. Like, I just can't sit still. So I got to walk around. Usually it'll, take 10, 20 minutes. I'll walk around and I'll just kind of be up in my head like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for this thing to happen. And I remember this vividly. So it was a warm summer day towards the end of the summer. If you ever experienced a summer in Central America in Iowa, it can be, usually we don't get a lot of nice ones. Usually it's just super freaking hot. Okay. So I remember I had my windows in my living room open, and I could feel, the summer sun was just streaming in. So it was super warm. And because the windows were open, there was somebody down in kind of our courtyard area that was grilling burgers. And obviously it smelled great. And I'm kind of particular on how I like to work. I'm not always the neatest guy, like I was talking about before, but I had my desk set up just a certain way. I remember I had some snacks laid out. I had some pretzels on my desk. I remember just like they were like super salty for whatever reason. And in the summers, because I said we had kind of a courtyard area in where I live, and we had blue jays that like to come and hang out. And I could remember hearing them, like, I don't know if they were chirping at each other or if they were fighting, but they were making a racket. Okay, so I can remember hearing them come through the window too. And so, I was super excited, but the truth is that things just aren't always as they appear. And I was getting into the job. I thought it was just like an adjustment period, right? Like whenever you start something new, like you're going to be a little uncomfortable, right? Like that's just kind of the way of things. Is you're getting used to everything. Like you're used to the previous jobs. You're just getting used to the new one. So I thought, hey, it's just a new job, so we'll give it some time. I'm sure things will kind of level out. But that feeling of discomfort, that uncomfortable feeling that you get in those kind of situations, instead of going away, it started to grow, and it kept growing and growing and growing. Now, the work itself wasn't bad. Like there wasn't anything necessarily wrong with the work itself, but it felt like I was working for somebody that was only worried about the money. Now, one thing I have to say, kind of in defense of the sales industry, is that I feel like sometimes there's a stereotype that salespeople are only ever worried about money. And we generally are financially driven people. However, usually that's kind of second or third on our list. Sure, we want to be able to go out and kind of earn our way and do things the way that we like. We tend to be a little more on the type A. But more often than not, for at least the folks that stick around, we are people that truly want to help, and we want to be consultative, and we want to help you either as an individual, depending on what we're selling, or as a business, get to the goals you want to do. Now, that means that sometimes we will offer you new solutions and say like, hey, we just came out with this, this new product or service, but we will also say something to the effect of like, hey, here's why I think this might fit your needs based on the conversation we had talking about X, Y, and Z. Or we will say, listen, this is a new product that we have out, and here's why I don't think that you should buy it. Here's why I don't think it makes sense, but I want to make sure that you're aware of it. Okay. Just kind of a sidebar there. Now, in this particular company, it didn't feel that way. It didn't feel like we were doing what was best for the customer anymore. It felt like we were just self-serving and doing what was best for us. And me being who I am, I kind of railed against that a little bit. Like it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like we were doing the right thing for the people that we were supposed to be serving. And the culture because of that, the culture wasn't a good fit either. And I started to really get the Sunday scaries. If you ever heard of that before, that's where like Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, you're starting to get anxious about going to work on Monday. And I was getting that. And as this feeling of uncomfortable it grew, I started to get it every single day, meaning that Sunday evening, I was worried about Monday, and Monday evening, I was worried about Tuesday, all the way through the week until we got to Friday. And it felt like, I was finally able to come up for air, but it only lasted a day and a half. The biggest problem that I had was it felt like leadership was just disconnected from what we were doing in the field, what we were trying to do and serve our customers the right way. And to compound that, I also hardly ever heard from my boss. I mean, I was newer to this job, and I was trying to, go out and, get in front of the customers that were already established and working with us, and also trying to, win some new business. And to that effect, that also requires, making some deals with folks. And some of those deals I can just make on my own, and some of those deals I couldn't, and I needed him to approve them or say yes or no. So when he kind of ghosted me for, days at a time, I just had to kind of do my best to tread water and string these people along. But I realized that something had to change. I couldn't control the job. I couldn't control the people around me. But what I could control was my mindset. Now, I'd never really done this prior to this experience. Everybody always talked about having like an attitude of gratitude. But I decided, okay, well, maybe that will help. So every single morning, I had a task in my Todoist where I would write down a new reason to be grateful. Now, this wasn't just like kind of general life stuff. I tried to find a new reason to be grateful for this job that I was starting to hate, honestly. So I found a new reason. Some days, I felt on top of the world, right? Like I closed a new deal. So, that was a huge win. So I was like, yeah, yes, I really did the thing. And some days it was crap, frankly. And some days I was just grateful that, hey, I have a consistent paycheck coming in. Hey, I can pay my bills every month. Hey, I have, a belly full of food. Hey, some days I was just grateful that, hey, because of this money that I'm making, I'm able to, give a lot of it away to, charities and folks that are less fortunate than myself. And I can help elevate them, even though right now I'm struggling emotionally, right? But like I said, I tracked it every single day through my daily tasks, and I did that for probably 10, 12 months until I was able to, find something that fit a little bit better. But every single day, I found a new reason to be grateful for a job that I hated. Now, it didn't fix the job, but it helped to keep me going. So if you're feeling stuck, build the system that will allow you to build that second brain where you can manage your tasks so you can actually focus on doing the things that you love to do. And maybe consider adding daily gratitude in there, because the more and more I've got into coaching and speaking and just kind of philosophy and psychology behind all of this, I don't so much think that it's an attitude of gratitude. I think it's gratitude that informs our attitude. I think gratitude comes first, and that improves our attitude overall in small ways that we sometimes can't even just quantify or see every single time. And looking back at this difficult job, I don't think that I would give it up, as odd as it might sound. I learned a lot in that role. Not all of it was great, but I learned a lot, and I can honestly say that if I had not gone through that job, I would not be sitting here talking to you today. So I have a couple things I want to ask you. I said, if any of this resonates at all, where, maybe you're feeling stuck in a bad job, or you're just feeling kind of stuck in general, or maybe you are feeling overwhelmed and you just have a ton on your plate and you're just bound to drop something, then I would encourage you to build a system, to build a second brain, and to subscribe to my podcast, because I have a ton of strategies like this that I want to share with you, and I want to make sure you don't miss an episode. Second thing is, if this does resonate with you, I would ask that you would share it out with somebody that you care about, because sometimes it's just a small encouragement saying like, hey, I listened to this podcast and it was really, really great. And it gave me a lot of encouragement, and I want to give you some too. So thank you again for listening. It honestly really does mean the world to me. And I will see you guys next time.